What happened to the Spinosaurus? In this episode, we're going to discuss the elephant in the room. How the Spinosaurus went from a killing machine to a 50-foot long newt. Enjoy. So, Jack, welcome to the channel. How you doing?
Hello. Yeah, good. You?
Yeah, I'm good. We're in lockdown, and as we're trying to keep ourselves busy. So
surviving.
Yes, surviving. So, for those that don't know who you are and what you do on social media and stuff, would you like to sort of tell everyone?
Yeah, well, I mean, lack of social media. I seem to have abandoned a lot of social media recently.
Well, for your channel and stuff.
But yeah, no, I run the Terrordome 3000 YouTube channel, and it's basically a channel where I just make whatever I fancy making. There's no sort of set thing on there. I mean, I do the actual Terrordome episodes every now and then where I'm like pretending I'm on a spaceship zooming around.
You've got done with them for a while, actually, haven't you?
Yeah, mainly because, well, over winter, the shed where I record those, where the set is, gets a bit cold, so I don't like to record during the winter time. And also we've got the little one on the way, so it's like, there's loads of stuff in there at the moment. But at the moment, I've basically been concentrating on working on this web series called Dino Defenders Extreme, which I've been doing, and that's basically now what the channel has solely become. Yeah, it's like focusing on doing live streams for that, which actually I have a bit of good news. I actually my laptop is in service right now, getting fixed. So that means I'll be able to go back to doing live streams a lot more once I get that back. So I'll be able to get back, because I primarily streamed from my laptop more than my actual PC. Or what I mean by that is I read the chat and hosted the live streams off my laptop, and then I did the work on my computer, which is where the feed was running from. So it basically meant I could have smoother running streams without too much CPU usage. But yeah, no, I making a web series that fills that void that fans of the Jurassic series and other dinosaur media have craved, which is something which might be a little bit more in line with Crichton's book in terms of its sort of adult nature. I mean, it's not going to be like the most complicated things. But
you sort of touch on a little bit of the source material, don't you? Like, you sort of flirt with it a little bit.
Yeah. Well, it's the thing is, I've had people ask me like, "Oh, is this related to Jurassic Park in any way, shape, or form?" And it's not. Only in the fact that Jurassic Park was one of the inspirations for the series.
Yeah,
it's like based in a sort of jungle with facilities out in the middle of it, and they're cloned dinosaurs. That's really as far as it goes. I mean, obviously there's other things like dinosaurs attacking vehicles and whatnot, but the story, especially when you get to episode 4 and maybe the end of episode 3, I think people are going to be like, yeah, this is definitely going on a different path to Jurassic in terms of the story. But yeah, that's basically it. I mean, I have Instagram and I'm on Telegram, but not as much on
Telegram.
Yeah.
Is that like Morse code?
No, Telegram is like another version of WhatsApp.
Right, okay.
That's where me and Tim do a little bit of our talking.
Okay.
What's the other one I was going to say? Can't remember now.
Go off the top of your head. Yeah, well, it might, before we go into the main topic, the elephant in the room of discussion of this Spinosaurus and what's happened within the paleontological world at the moment, we'll just briefly, we'll just sort of reflect on just what you said there on the Dino Defenders. So basically, it's a fan-made project that you've been doing for a couple of years now, and obviously I'm a patron for it. But we, for those, if you are interested in being a patron to Jack's project, you basically get a bit of like sort of pre-show of what he's been working on before everyone else gets to see it, and just things like that. I guess there's a different level to different patrons and what they get given and stuff, or...
Oh, yeah, I mean, I don't really have many high people who are paying.
Okay, it's more of just
no one's really doing that. But at the moment, it's basically just to help keep me at home more, because obviously we all have to pay mortgages and bills and all that sort of stuff.
Oh yeah, of course.
Like, if I was to meet the goal of the Patreon, then that means I could be at home and all the time working on it. But
for things like fixing your laptop that you need to use it.
Yeah, paying the composer, that's a big part of it as well.
Yeah, I suppose so.
The composer, some moolah.
Yeah, it's the little things, isn't it, that you don't sort of realise that to make a project fully successful, it's like just paying the composer. Yeah,
it's time. It's time more than anything. It's like you need the time to work on it, and obviously being in lockdown. For me, you'd think I'd have more time, but I don't actually, because I've taken up a what do they call it? What do they call those people? Crucial worker job.
Okay.
Taking up one of those to do over the course of lockdown to help things move along.
Key workers, that's the one.
Yeah. But yeah, it's it's patreon.com/Ewinzilla if you want to check it out. I will admit that I've not been like on top of it as much as other Patreon people, because usually people post any updates and all that sort of stuff, whereas I find that the Patreon tends to be just a place where people just go to support it, and then they go to my YouTube or my other social media to sort of actually show their support. And
that's generally where I see you most of the time, isn't it? Through your YouTube channel, like you'll be doing a live paint of like one of the scenes that's coming up in the show, in the episode, and you'll talk to everyone on the live stream about what you're doing, and things like that. So
I haven't done one of those in a while, because we're in the very sort of end of post-production for episode 3 right now. So Luke, the composer, is now working on that, and I'm also trying to source a song for the episode from these musicians and doing some other stuff. So it's like just trying to sort that out and going through the dialogue with Tim to make sure that's all as sound and it's an exciting thing. I do think if everyone does go and check out your channel, and you'll generally get a good gist of what you're creating now. It's a Jurassic fan show that's not Jurassic Park related, but it's got everything in Jurassic Park that you love, but with the elements, but with your own creation put on top. So it's good. It's good stuff. I think everyone should go and check that out. And I think episode 3 is going to hopefully turn some heads, because this is a fun episode.
Yeah, it looks, just from the trailer, it looked awesome. So I can't wait to see, especially some of the things that you've shown me as well. Some interesting things happen in this episode. So one of the things that you do also have the privilege of is, we'll just slightly briefly touch on it, is you're one of the canon consultants on the DPG thing for Jurassic World. Obviously, being in lockdown, you've not had much to do yet.
Well, I'll say this. Obviously, I can't talk too much about it.
Of course,
we were just about to kick off everything.
What, when we went in lockdown?
Yeah, we were about to get our work underway for Dominion, and it all just, the plug was put on it, and it was like, okay, we're going to be waiting now. So, yeah, which is annoying. But it's annoying, but the crew and everyone have to be safe, so that's the main thing.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, so
at least fun
stuff is fun.
You've got some fun stuff, like it's a bit of a pro and a con, really, isn't it, being a canon consultant? Because as much as it's a huge, massive honour, and a lot of us would love to be in your shoes in one respect, but being one of your friends, I also know the amount of ag that you deal with being this canon consultant. So doesn't.
You have to make sure that everything's in line, and there'll always be someone who pulls something out of the woodwork from years ago that completely undercuts what you just wrote. Like, where was this information when I needed it?
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where it's like you have to weigh up how important is this information. Like a good example of that is people were saying, why wasn't the Apatosaurus on the InGen's list on the DPG website, when in the Lost World's official souvenir magazine, one of the little pictures of the bones that Ian, Sarah and Kelly are walking through to enter the village, the InGen village, is Apatosaurus bones, and I have that magazine. and I just didn't think to look in it when I was researching for the list. And obviously nothing in the film says that it's a patasaur thing, so it's like one of those things I just say, like, well, then it's a retcon. You know?
Yeah, it literally just got introduced, didn't it? So with no... Yeah. And some things, like we've discussed on our chat, that are just ironically almost about the topic that we're discussing tonight, that there's a bit of leeway with. So it's just about what route you can take to make it plausible in the story, isn't it? So...
Yeah, and it's always a balancing act, and you'll never ever get it right. Like, no one in this seat will ever write something and everyone go, yeah, that's how I picture it, or that.
Yeah, no, of course not. That's why absolutely.
Keeping things up to interpretation for the most part, because obviously the films as well are an ever evolving entity.
Yeah,
and it's like you don't know what the filmmakers have planned for the next chapter that could completely undercut what you're writing. And I know there's some people out there who will think like, well, why don't you work together? And it's like, we do work together. But when we're working on Masrani Global, no one mentioned Lockwood to us once, because Lockwood wasn't a thing then. And then when Lockwood comes along, you learn all about this backstory, about how he was part of John Hammond's park and all this sort of stuff. So you're like, okay, so Lockwood's now a thing. And it's like, luckily we didn't write anything that would get in the way of that, but we could have very easily have written something that would have then gone against the character Lockwood.
Yeah.
If we weren't too careful to write the way we do. So yeah, it's always trying to find that balancing act, you know.
Yeah, well, I think obviously speaking from a fan's perspective as well, like you need the team that you work with, don't you? Because it's easy to sort of get carried away in your own thoughts, and it's always good to have another opinion, isn't it? So that's why there's quite...
They slap me down enough.
Yeah. But anyway,
I'm the one who'll mouth off about canon and
yeah,
and then I'll be like, well, you know, there is this, that, and take into consideration. I'm like, oh no, yeah. But you need someone out there who's like raising questions and causing controversy, because then that brings all the opinions up to the surface, and then you can be like, this is what everyone thinks. Because if you don't mention something that will raise hairs on people's backs or get them kind of angry, then you won't ever get the information out of them, because barely anyone talks about stuff like, unless there's like something that's going against like what they thought.
Yeah, no one ever says anything that's... Yeah, I know what you're saying. It's more negative. You always hear about negativity and not as much positivity.
Well, it's also that thing of like, for example, like when this whole T-Rex consistency discussion was coming up, that's why when I was reading about it, I was like, well, how does the bull T-Rex animatronic in Jurassic Park 3 factor into this? Because if we're going about consistency and things looking exactly the same, that animatronic is the same one used in Jurassic Park 3. So is that T-Rex in the third film meant to be the bull, or do we just accept it as another animal? And if we do, why do we do that? Why do we bend the rules around this animal for looking completely the same as another one, rather than one that's meant to look the same but it looks
but be different. Yeah,
and that's the way my mind works.
It's one rule for one and one for another.
Well, yeah, and it's like, I understand where everyone's coming from, and I get that, but to me it's like, well, what's the next step in the conversation? I always go to that. I'm like, someone, I can't remember who, so apologies to if they're listening, but someone out there said
probably not.
Jack likes to attack from the side, not from the front, and I'm like, okay, that's the perfect way. I never heard anyone explain it like that before, but I was like, that is what I like to do. It's like, you know, not to blow my own trumpet too much, but I do like to attack from the side, not from the front on an issue. Like, I'll find something and be like, yeah, that T-Rex is inconsistent in Jurassic World, but what about the bull T-Rex in Jurassic Park 3?
Yeah, there's always, you throw a question on a question, but right,
and that's
because I know we can talk about that for God knows how long. I think we should move on to the elephant in the room about this Spinosaurus. Okay, now I'm a big fan of the animal because I just find it so bizarre. It is one of the most bizarre looking creatures in paleontology. Now, recently, for those, if you don't know, there's been a few articles that have come out online. You can see it quite quite commonly over Twitter quite often, that the Spinosaurus has found in recent times, they've discovered that they've found some elongated tail bone structures to make the tail a little bit more, I guess, adaptable for aquatic environments. And the forelimbs are a lot shorter, and things like that. So its design has changed drastically. Now let's start back from the beginning to what we probably know the Spinosaurus as, because I know that as much as you love dinosaurs, you might not be as into paleontology as you are into Jurassic Park. I don't know. How are you on the subject, Jack?
Well, when I was a kid, I was first introduced to the Spinosaurus via this magazine called Dinosaurs that used to come out.
The one where you collect the
pieces of the glow in the dark.
Yeah,
T-Rex.
I had that.
They
I
also
loved it.
Bugs that had like a big tarantula.
Yep, I had that too.
Yeah. Well, they had a.
Christ, going back to the 90s there.
I know. Precious childhood memories.
Mm.
But there was an issue with that. I can't remember which issue it was, but it showed a Spinosaurus in there, and it looked like almost like the Lost World Spinosaurus action figure. You know, it had the short face,
stumpy face, standing upright.
The Allosaurus body with the spine on the back, and that was about it.
Yeah.
And so I never really sort of paid too much attention to it when I was a kid. I was like, yeah, okay, that's fine. But then when Jurassic Park 3 came out, obviously that completely changed everything.
It changed a hell of a lot. One of the things, obviously, the reason why we know the Spinosaurus, as you just said, Jack, in Jurassic Park 3, was due to Jack Horner working on the films, and this was his depiction of what this creature looked like at the time. So that become a very, very, very popular dinosaur among the community, didn't it?
Yeah, it brought it to the mainstream because obviously, you know, it's funny because everyone says that yes, and I agree with them that yes, they used the Spinosaurus as just a marketing tool to dethrone the T-Rex, so you could have a new big bad to sell toys and this that and the other. But as much as we would complain about that, they did do that. Like, they did dethrone the T-Rex, and the Spinosaurus gained so much notoriety and popularity among the masses, even though it was like, I would argue it probably didn't deserve it. But
yeah,
I do love the design of that creature and stuff. Even though now it's like completely wrong, I still love the design of that animal, and I still think it fits in the world of Jurassic. But it just brought the Spinosaurus to the mainstream, and when I say like it changed everything, that's what I mean. Like, it became this like kind of obscure dinosaur that whatever, but then boom, it's the front lead dinosaur in one of the Jurassic films, and it becomes one of the most popular dinosaurs almost overnight.
It is very iconic, definitely. Now, I'm such a big Rex fanboy, especially for the original Rex. So when the Spinosaurus did kill the T-Rex in Jurassic Park 3, I did kind of I was gutted, and at the time I didn't really think about the situation, if I'm honest. I was so engrossed with the movie when it first came out that I didn't really think about, oh my god, it's just killed the T-Rex and this is the new bad dinosaur. I didn't really think about it like that. It wasn't until, I guess, afterwards and reflecting on at the time, I was a little bit like, would that dinosaur be able to do that? Blah 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 blah. And it got into a bit. I was a bit more studied the science behind it rather than just seeing two dinosaurs fight on screen. In fiction, I literally, I was after that film. I kind of got a bit of I say not an obsession. That's the wrong word to use, but I was really, really interested in what this creature was. And one of the things that I really found interesting is the fact that the only known specimen up until recent times that was ever found was destroyed during the Blitz in World War II.
In London.
And And I found that
London. I think it was London.
I think it might have been, but I'm not sure. Don't quote us on that. Someone obviously listening might know a bit more on that, but I know that it did get destroyed in the Blitz, and the only thing that the remains of it was like a partial part of its front of its jaw, and they used that to estimate the skull length, and then based on the skull length, they then estimated the length of the dinosaur just based on the skull length. Now, obviously, there's so many different types of skulls, and dinosaurs have different types of anatomies. So basing a length
Imagine
of
doing that for the Dimorphodon. Like, how would that work?
Exactly.
You measure that skull, and then you're like, this thing's like a little raptor, and you're like, no, it's actually a flying.
Exactly, and that's one of the things that I think that's partly the problem with why the Spinosaurus has been given so many different designs. Now, no matter
like
what
Pokemon, it like has 3 different evolutions over time.
it does, it's so bizarre. It's literally gone from being a killing machine to a 50-foot newt, isn't it?
Yeah.
In social media terms. And
do you want to talk about like what the new discovery is that happened? Was it yesterday or?
I don't know when. I don't know when it was exactly, but I know the article's only been out a day or a few days to us. Published 29th of April on this article on here. Now, basically, what's happened is the Spinosaurus, as we know, had already had one reconfiguration from the Spinosaurus in Jurassic Park 3 look to being fully bipedal, big roughly 7 foot long arms, a bit of a force in nature, I would say. It's very, almost would match a T-Rex in terms of size, and it's kind of changed to a quadruped. It did go quadruped, but with slightly shorter limbs. So it still had the same sort of structure, normal tail, normal head. The sail was still similar, but it had shorter legs and shorter arms. Now, recent times, the arms, in fact, have even grown even smaller. I guess, or shrunk even smaller, I should say, not grown even smaller.
Yeah.
Shrunk even smaller. And the tail bones that they've now discovered, because they've found a bit more of the skeleton, have got really elongated spines. So covered that in, muscle, fat, and skin, or whatever it had, you're looking at almost like a perfect tail to live in an aquatic environment. Almost like a crocodilian.
I would argue like almost solely aquatic, like not even much on land.
Yeah, and if that was the case, because there was talk of it being semi-aquatic, wasn't there? So it would hunt on land and spend most of its time in the water,
hunting fish and whatnot.
Yeah, exactly, and also picking off, food on land. Now, this new design, I call it a design because it has changed so much. In 10 years' time, it could be looking something completely different. It could have no bloody legs at all.
You're not wrong to do that, because every single dinosaur that's been depicted is a design. It's not the actual animal. Like, I've always had the stance that, this is my own personal opinion on all this, that every single dinosaur, no matter how scientifically accurate someone may claim it to be, to me, it's always going to be night and day compared to what the real thing must have looked like, because obviously time moves forward, so the further we get away from 65 million years ago, the harder it will be. And I just, unless someone builds an actual time machine, I don't think any depiction of a dinosaur that's artistically interpreted in such a way, or even if they go with scientifically worked out how the coloration of this dinosaur works, it's like, okay, so that is the color, I'll give you that, but then is the rest of the dinosaur right? Is the tail, is that what it looked like? Because to me, it's so much so it lives so much in the world of fiction, these depictions. I'm not talking about the actual science, I'm talking about like the way people artistically interpret what the science
of
says.
Course, like you look at,
you're right to use design, because that is exactly what it is. It's like, it's not I always imagine that, like, if we were to go back in dinosaur times, we would be dumbfounded by how much we've got wrong. Like, we'd be like, whoa, this looks nothing like we imagined. But also, I think there would be moments of like, oh wow, we got that right. We actually got that right. But I think those would be
what, like the Dinosaurus?
Yeah, it's just a giant crocodile. But I mean, like, the things we get right are vastly outweighed by the things we got wrong. No matter how scientifically accurate we might think we've got it, it's like, I don't see it being.
Well,
correct.
you can use just modern day animals for an example. Like, you look at a skull of a
dog, for one example.
A dog, yeah. It doesn't look too dissimilar.
It doesn't even have a nose. The end of the dog's skull ends in like almost like a hip, like a ski slope shape. It ends going down like this, but you wouldn't imagine there's this big bulbous black nose that would sniff around, like, looking for. Unless you saw a dog fossilized, it might show the imprint of the nose. But yeah, there's.
No, it's the same with most things, like elephants. Look at an elephant without its, just an elephant skull. It looks so different to the main animal, and a hippo. So we never know, to be fair.
Well, it's like if these animals of modern time were fossilized 65 million years ago, we might be able to know how much we get wrong. It's another impossible question, because if they were fossilized 65 million years ago, we would see what we would find 65 million years later in the rocks. Would we find an imprint of a trunk? Would we find the imprint of, I don't know, the way a hippo looks compared to its skull, its skeleton?
Yeah.
Whereas with dinosaurs, like, what I'm saying is we don't know how much we don't know about mammals if they were extinct 65 million years ago than what we do today. So to me it's all speculation for the most part. It's almost impossible to get 100% right.
Yeah, even like even Sue, the T-Rex Sue, that's almost, I think isn't it like 90% complete? It's the most complete skeleton in the fossil record, and even with the complete fossil record, the complete skeleton, there's still no way of knowing, even if they've mounted that correctly.
Yeah.
Like, it's brilliant to look at, knowing that all of that is actually genuine, and I'm talking in terms of scale and size, that actual creature walked on this earth, and it's not just they've made the size of this animal up just from 3 teeth in its head. Do you know what I mean? Like, sometimes these people, like some of these paleontologists, will find like a vertebrae bone, and all of a sudden you've got like a 90-foot long bloody sauropod from one vertebrate bone. So it does go bizarre. But getting back to this animal now, with the latest find, the bit I was talking about was the elongated chevrons, and that is the part of the section of the tail. And it's what they've said is that they're so long that it's sort of made like a fin-like organ that enables it to propel through water. And what they did is they did experiments using like different like rulers and all sorts of different stuff to see how it would affect through the water, and they found that it was really good at propulsion with swimming. And it says on the website that these results are consistent with the suite of adaptations for the aquatic lifestyle and piscivorous diet that they previously have been documented for the Spinosaurus. Although developed to a lesser degree, aquatic adaptations are also found in other members of the Spinosaurid family, such as the Baryonyx, Irritator, and Suchomimus, which are near global distribution, and like it's a bit like they all pretty much seem to be under the same sort of family and same sort of things. So it'd be interesting to know whether even the other Spinosaurids get found and have the same sort of thing. It would not surprise me whatsoever.
Well, this is the thing. I have this feeling that like most dinosaurs were probably pretty close to modern animals more than we actually realise. This would be my speculation on the whole thing, because they recently just discovered that the Edmontosaurus had hooves.
Oh yeah, that was brilliant.
Remember that whole thing?
Like, yeah, fantastic.
So you've got this hoof-like dinosaur. You've got these newt things swimming around that are like, they're all big and impressive. But you know what's next? You know, they're very similar in design to modern day animals, and to me that like is just almost a good weight of proof to the theory of evolution, because it sort of shows that these methods of getting around and these methods of hunting and that they seem to work. So you'll see, like I always use this as an example, like, you know, a brachiosaurus has a really long neck for reaching the tops of trees for eating. Well, a mammal also has that. It's called the giraffe. So the giraffe is the sauropod equivalent of the brachiosaurus or something like that.
Yeah,
that design in nature is something that works, and whatever natural selection took place to get to that is like the same design is patterned throughout history to show that it actually works. And it's the same for this Spinosaur tail and newt's tails. Just obviously the scale is vastly different.
Yeah. You either adapt or you perish, don't you? At the end of the day, in nature, exactly. As tough as that. Jack, if you click on that link, you click on the first tab, I believe that's on there. On that, it says it's the 3D model. It is it's the one that you got the supplemental information. Then you've got a sketch fab under data availability, and then you've got the models. Click under the it says vertebrae and chevrons. Click on.
Okay, bear with me.
Actually, not vertebrae and chevrons. Sorry, the wrong one. The one above that.
So Sketchfab 3.
Yeah, that one.
Scanned. Okay.
And have a look at that.
Let's have a little look. Loading 3D model.
Okay, so one of the things you notice about this new animal, as you can move around, you can see it all from different angles, from the front, from the back, and they've depicted it to have webbed feet. Now that kind of makes sense, doesn't it?
It does, but there's something about this design that I absolutely hate.
Which is?
It doesn't seem to make any sense to me that it's bipedal.
No, not at all. I understand. It should be bipedal, because to me that would just tip forward. So for me, straight away, those hands would be on the floor.
Well, it's either the hands would be on the floor or the legs are completely wrong. Those back legs are completely wrong. But they're not like crocodile legs, that they go outwards and down rather than straight down. There's something about everything about this Spinosaur design so far to me seems correct, except for the legs and the arms. Like everything about that seems wrong, unless it's like it lived solely in water.
Yeah, because its legs are. It's been given
just look like compy legs that have just been like placed on this giant body.
Yeah, it's strange, isn't it? If you was to put the front legs down in is it pronated position, or is that a pronated position? I'll get confused with the pair.
I think pronated is.
Isn't that like a humerus?
Jurassic Park.
Yeah. If you put them hands in a pronated position, it will able it to put its weight down on the floor. Now.
But obviously it might not have had.
That's what I'm saying. So if the fact that they've put it like this, that it hasn't got pronated wrists.
Well, this is an artistic interpretation, right? What is the actual fossil evidence of what
there
Spinosaurus' legs look like?
There is a skeleton. Wasn't it on the main? Where is it? Let's go back. I try and find it. Click on supplementary information.
Yeah, I'm just trying to see like what is the actual the fossil record for the Spinosaurus' legs. That's always the thing. The rest of it I'm all on board with. That looks kind of doable. Like in natural selection, that seems like something that would plausibly live. But then you look at those legs and you're like, well, why did it have those legs? Like, how did that work?
Yeah. There's been
a lot of people will show it like knuckling along on those front feet, and you're like, why would it walk on its knuckles?
But then there's an animal and there's a mammal, isn't there? I can't remember the name of it. Megapithium or something stupid like that it's called. That it was almost like a large sloth that walked around on its knuckles with massive claws.
But I bet its back legs weren't tiny.
No, they were. It walked like a gorilla.
Oh, okay.
But it had claws, and it had its claws in turning. So I don't know how much of this would be, whether it'd be right or not. But I know what you're saying though. Based on that 3D artist interpretation, to me that just looks like it would fall forward.
Yeah, in water it would be fine. It's just I just don't see like how it would work if it's going on land. Like with the way, it's not so much like the size of the legs. It's more like the way they've sort of what's the way of wording this? It's like the way they've like got it so it looks like it would stand bipedally. It's like, well,
yeah,
that doesn't look right whatsoever. To
no,
me.
it don't. And to have it right in that sort of stance, you'd need the legs to at least be central to the body, wouldn't you?
Yes.
To balance, just for balance, pure balance only. Because it wouldn't work just in that, looking like that. Like that design looks like it should have big legs, and it looks like they've shrunk the legs.
Or it should have crocodile legs.
But then obviously if they found that and its hip placement is in the hip shape of like a bird, then yeah, I'm going to send you this picture quickly. Okay, so the white, I think, is where they found, or the orange is where they found.
Completely 100% in red. So that so if the white is what they've found and the red is what they've not found, then yeah, I'm right. The back legs are just completely scientific speculation. And the thing that they're going off of for the back legs are what we already had before, which is like the normal theropod legs that we know. It's like there needs to be. Obviously, they would need to discover the legs to find them, but I'd be very surprised if the legs were like that, because it looks like someone just took raptor legs or Allosaurus legs and just stuck them on to this thing. And it's like with the rest of the anatomy, the front legs I'm fine with because it's like there's claws.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they were flippers.
Yeah, or something. It's just I just don't see that. That just doesn't look right, and the fact that if that is correct, what you've just sent me, and they haven't found any fossil record or any fossils of Spinosaurus's back legs, then yeah, that's scientific speculation, and expect the Spinosaurus to go for another change in the future. Yeah,
absolutely. I think you could look at that picture in two ways, though. You can look at that picture in a way of like. Maybe it could be the red that is all we have, and the white is what we haven't got. I'm not actually sure because it doesn't specifically say in that image.
Here's my prediction, right? So Spinosaurus is a lot like a crocodile, right? So I'm imagining that sail would be used for heat. For changing the temperature of its blood.
It could be. Or display.
Well, both. Like it would flush blood in there for display, but it would also use it to cool the blood, and it would need that sail in order to basically get heat from the sun while it's underwater, because being in water, it might be cool most of the time. So it might sit in the water with its sail above the surface, extracting heat from the sun into it so it could get the energy so it would swim underneath the water. And to me that means it wouldn't be on land very much, and if it was, it would just waddle onto the side of like the blooming bank of a river to just sort of sit there
and bask in the sun. Do you know what's interesting? It's, you know, the Dimetrodon.
Yes.
Now that is a prehistoric reptile, I believe. It's not part of the Dinosauria, yeah. So, what's interesting about that is that it actually has, if you look at the skeletal structure of a Dimetrodon, it is low to the ground, like a lizard. It's got its legs sprayed apart.
I just sent you a GIF to a lizard animation. That's how, if I was to make a sort of interpretation of how this Spinosaurus would walk, it's basically that. It's a lizard. The way a lizard walks is how I imagine the Spinosaurus.
Like, like straight in the right, yeah. Okay. I think looking at the Dimetrodon skeleton, sorry, you can see that the vertebrae is part of its body. It's not like a membrane of skin that someone sort of made up. It is actually connected to its spinal cord. So, if for example an animal would bite that, or it would get snapped, technically it would paralyse the animal. But nature's way of stopping that from happening is that it's low to the ground. It would just flop its legs down to stop itself from being rolled and pushed over. And it was probably, chances are, one of the biggest predators it's probably an apex predator of its time. So not a lot of things would have, I guess, apart from other ones, would sort of be a threat to it. So, going back to the Spinosaurus, those spines on its back are connected to its vertebrae. Now, if that creature...
that's a very risky piece of evolution, isn't it?
Very, very, very risky. Now, if that creature was on land and was the size of the Spinosaurus that we know in Jurassic Park 3, now, if that T-Rex would have knocked that over to the ground, technically, it could have snapped its spine.
Oh, it would easily have snapped its spine.
And if that, as soon as that spine's snapped, it's dead. It can't hunt, it can't move, it's paralysed.
As if it breaks the vertebrae at the base, like if the T-Rex was to stomp on its spine as it was lying sideways, it's going to snap loads of its vertebrae off.
Yeah, can imagine.
I was just going to say but then again, is that part of what my prediction was, that like it floats in the water with its spine out of the water collecting heat? So is the fact that it's connected to its vertebrae something to do with cooling it?
Yeah, it could be. But where I was leading with what I was saying is that, so being on land is almost like a risk in evolutionary talk.
Oh yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So being in the water, there's no risk of that animal rolling over, and especially something that size, and snapping its back and its spinal column. So that, in my eyes, does support evidence that this thing didn't spend a lot of time outside the water.
No. I reckon predominantly in the water.
And it's massive. It's a massive thing.
Probably only came on land to like bask every now and then and lay eggs. That's probably what it did.
Yeah, pretty much. And I think, see, there's a picture here, Jack. I'll send you this picture. Right, this is everything wrong with what we just said about. Right, and why?
Are you putting these pictures up on the video?
Yeah, we'll do. Yeah, of course I will.
Exactly.
Yeah,
there you go. Look, those legs are not going to support that.
Nah, and
that's ridiculous. That's like, to me, that's like looking at those upright pictures of the T-Rex that you'd see years ago. Like, it's like totally wrong.
And
it's a cool image. Like,
I think
the artistry is good, but the actual biology of that thing just looks really wrong.
Yeah, and I think that's okay if it's using them to maybe scratch its claws on a tree, or climbing up.
Or if it was underwater like that, standing on the bottom of the riverbed and looking out over the water.
Just and that makes perfect sense, doesn't it? But just as to imagine that walking around on it wouldn't logistically work as, and that's just what I'm surprised about, how people have, especially these paleontologists, they're intelligent people. They know how biology and anatomy works. So why would they create something? I know this is just our opinion.
I know that feeling, because I have that same feeling where I'm like, how
do they even get to this point of it looking like that?
Yeah, stood in the water like that. It's like, to me, that is just like, that just looks completely wrong.
Yeah, there's some really good pictures of the Spino, to be honest. They're all of different ones.
Here's another one. This is 6 hours ago, by a really good paleo artist on Twitter called Mark Witten.
Mm-hmm.
He did his version of this when all the news was coming out. It's the same exact thing.
Oh no, it just doesn't work, does it? It's awful. It's actually awful, and a little bit of me thinks maybe this is because this has happened because people just can't quite let go of the Jurassic Park 3 to Spinosaurus. And obviously not everyone's seen.
It's because they haven't discovered exactly what the back legs of a Spinosaurus would look like, and until then they're sticking to the old legs. So the old legs are a hangover from the old design. That just it's not like they can't let it go. It's just because that's all they have to go off of is the old legs. Whereas it's like, you need to sort of branch out and think, how would this logistically actually work?
And then you see that in water. How at home does it look?
Yeah, in water it looks fine with those legs. Like, in water, fine, but on land, standing bipedally, it's like, no way.
It looks like them, like them old-fashioned artistic dinosaur books that you see from the early 80s and 90s.
That's what I mean. It's stood up, right?
And and they've all got the same pig snout nostrils on their faces and stuff.
What about this one? This one's like someone did an artistic version of the Jurassic Park 3 T-Rex.
Yeah, do you know, I've seen that. That actually looks quite good, but it doesn't look right.
Yeah, again, it's standing bipedally.
They based that one literally off of that 3D model that we saw. As you can see up there,
those little back legs. It's like
it just doesn't work, does it?
No.
Now I know that the pair of us can be quite opinionated, but to me that is just
we could be completely wrong.
Yeah, but
it could have had those legs. Who knows?
But it's just, you know what? I'd love to hear in the comments. People write down if you think that the Spinosaurus that we show here, that we're talking about, is, to you, it would work on land. Because to me and Jack, it's a big no.
Well, it's not. To be more clear, it's not like it wouldn't work on land. It's just, how would it walk on land?
That could not walk on land like that.
Exactly. It's like, I can't see how they're picturing it, and when they do artistic versions to show what they mean, it's like, to me, it's like, well, how the heck is that thing holding itself up on those tiny little back legs?
Do you know what I picture? Donald Duck quacking along, but
well, this is it.
50-foot long.
Birds, like, they do have ridiculously thin legs. I mean, look at a flamingo, but at the same time, they're not 50-foot long, and they're not holding up tons of
body weight. Yeah.
See, to me, it's more like, I know this is from Ark, and it's completely.
I love the Ark design. Ark design is probably one of my favourites.
This is like completely scientifically inaccurate.
Yeah.
It's like, this is how I imagine it being more on land,
Mm-hmm.
like more like a Komodo dragon or something.
Yeah. No, I'm completely with you on that, and I'll post that picture on as well. Because that picture there is pretty much, and it picks how I would how I'd imagine a quadruped Spinosaurus looking, but then it has got pronated wrists there. However, its elbows at the front do go out slightly with its anatomy, but
even ones like this, which I'm about to post in the chat, even ones like this looks a bit wrong to me because it's the whole like walking on the knuckles. It's like, to me, the fingers of those hands, it just doesn't. There's something about the way that looks that just doesn't look right. It looks too.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It looks. It's the way the legs are, like the shape of the legs, the way the bones are bending. It's like it just doesn't work for me.
Do you know what? Like, I could let that slip, but a creature like that, it's walking almost like a normal dinosaur at the back and a sloth at the front. It's so bizarre.
Yes, and it's like that doesn't work.
It's just weird.
It's to me, it's like the sloth things at the front are okay, but the back legs, that's where it's like it starts to get a bit more like, okay, well then how does this actually work? And that's the thing. I just don't see it being. I just don't see those legs being that small.
Yeah, it almost makes it look funny, don't it? Like, it makes me laugh when I see it looking that small. It's just hilarious. Like, look at that, the one underneath that I showed you just then, with
the skeleton.
That's pretty cool. I like that reconstruction. It looks awesome.
Yeah, it looks awesome. Yeah.
And it's quite a big boy actually. That.
It's huge. That animal.
Yeah. But
again, those aren't real fossils. They'll be casts.
Nah, it's all casts, and it's all.
And we don't know if they've actually like blown up the casts for dramatic effect rather than keep it realistically sized.
Yeah, but it is a very, very strange subject indeed. What I'll do for everybody that is listening and wants to know the information where we received all of this. Not the pictures. The pictures are just from bloody Google, but the topic of discussion, the ones that we're using for reference of the discovery, I'll put in the show notes, so everyone can click on that and it'll take you directly to the link that we were given to. And it's actually really interesting, that link on there. The guys that published the article there is lots of videos on there that shows how different experiments have been used to show how different tails would move in water, and the one that they've discovered with the elongated vertebrae at the back kind of proves that it would be good in water. They've also got 3D model of the actual Spinosaurus reconstruction that they found. However, me and Jack just discovered, we just discussed that it looked really odd, but they've got that on there, which is a really good little program on there. And also, you can, if you're interested in just looking at the bones and the spines and stuff in general on their own, they've got 3D scans of each of them on there. So I'll post a link, and guys, if you're into paleontology, go and have a look, because it is really cool and really interesting. But I think that's enough talk on that part of the Spinosaurus. What's your view on? Well, I guess on.
I just found another image. Sorry.
Go on, send me the last image before we carry on.
This is probably the best version of that. So the design that we've been sort of critiquing, this is probably the best version of it, because they've beefed up the muscles on the legs.
Okay.
And the legs, so it actually kind of looks like it might work like this, because it starts to look a little bit more like...
That looks more like a Caprosuchus.
Yeah, like a big monitor lizard with a sail on its back or something like
that.
Yeah,
I'll post a picture of the Caprosuchus, just so people...
The one I just posted is probably the most accurate at this time that I can think of, aside from it hasn't got the newt tail that they've just discovered. But
yeah,
that's probably the most realistic, because they've beefed up the muscles in its legs to hold its body up. But I still think that's probably wrong.
You might be right, I think, because that's a pretty good... Okay, this is a Caprosuchus. It's probably not the best one to use because it's from Ark as well. but they have got that based off of the, and it actually has a, it walks on all fours, and it's supposed to be, a type of crocodilian, isn't it?
It all comes down to this, right? That Spinosaurus, the new design of the Spinosaurus, imagine it basking on the side of a river, right? And then a T-Rex bursts out of the jungle
and kills it.
And kills it. But what's its defense mechanism to get away? Is it to run on its knuckles? Is it like, how does that thing run? To me, it's like, how does it move when it's out of water? And if it's not out of water, if it 100% spends its time in water, then fair enough, I don't really have any issues. It's like, it doesn't, to me, it's in water. Whereas like, out of the water, it's like, I don't know how that thing...
Just for argument's sake, okay, these did live... They did... No, that's what I was going to say. They didn't... They lived at different time periods. But for the sake of argument, if they did... I think the Spinosaurus has two options. Based on its anatomy, right now, it has two options. One of them, it stands up on its hind legs and balances on its tail to make itself look as big as physically possible. And its last form of defense, would be its claws, because its head and jaw structure and mouth would be no good whatsoever, because it's too thin, too brittle. It's just not designed for fighting, and it's not made of solid bone like the Rex is. Now the other one would be to get in the water.
Yeah, just slip and slide.
Yeah, if it gets in the water, I guarantee a Rex probably wouldn't risk going near the water, because it's big enough. It would be big enough to take in a Rex and drown it like a crocodile would.
Yeah.
Because a T-Rex in the day, if its only weapon really is its tail and its head, and because his arms are no good, so if you bring that in the water and you drown it with using the size and bulk of the body, then maybe that's so. But then creatures probably adapted to that. They know this animal probably floated with most of its head under the water, most of its body under the water.
Yeah, I've just found the first ever image of a Spinosaurus I ever saw.
Oh yeah.
So one of the old retro ones, just found it. That's the first image of a Spinosaurus I ever saw, and funny enough, look at how it stood upright, like these new depictions.
Oh god, that's awful, isn't it? That's hilarious.
And then there's this one where it's actually, funny enough, looks like it's walking on all fours. Aside from the...
Oh my god, look at that head.
Yeah.
That looks like...
Are you ready to see this one though?
Oh
this
god.
One's great. This one's...
Guys, these images are hilarious. That looks like...
Have you ever seen the Spinosaurus poster from Jurassic Park, the first ever Jurassic Park film? They did a Spinosaurus poster for that.
I don't think I have, actually.
Let me see if I can find it, because it actually depicted both versions.
Oh yeah, I know that is the version... I know that's the version of the Spinosaurus we got in Jurassic Park Warpath. The fighting game.
Yeah, so this was... God, I'm going to have to try and find this now. You might have to start watching a bit of a video that me and Clayton did, just to see it.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can get you a link to that. And I'll tell you what time frame to skip to. Bear with me, or what you just posted. So if you go to this video and then skip to 3 minutes 28.
Okay, so I've just looked at the video. I'll post that video. Well, I might post that video in the chat anyway, but it's basically a first poster that we see in the Jurassic. Where does this come from, Jack?
The only known thing was this comes from a eBay page that had it listed. It's long gone now. Like, you can't even find the page. And I can't remember what the poster was for specifically, but to cut a long story short, I think it's just some like stereotypical paleo art that they bought the rights to use to promote Jurassic Park, and they just had Spinosaurus. You know, it wasn't like they were saying that Spinosaurus was on the park or anything, but the first ever instance of Spinosaurus in the franchise whatsoever was apparently this poster.
Right, okay.
And the only images we have of it is whatever the person who owned it originally posted on eBay. And luckily we've saved it in my video, and there's a few other places that we've got copies of these eBay pictures, but no one else has been able to confirm anything to do with this poster, like where it is or who bought it or what. But yeah, it's just interesting. And it's funny because it shows two versions of the Spinosaurus, one with a really short face and one with a really, well, rather long face. You know?
Yeah, no, it's definitely one of those animals that, to be fair, I do enjoy talking about it, because it's just, do you know what I find amusing is because, like, a lot of people, you know, with the whole T-Rex wasn't even really supposed to be a predator, it was a scavenger debate and all that stuff that Jack Horner said about, and then we've, you know, they changed so much, all these different opinions, and you know, the Spinosaurus come along in Jurassic Park 3, technically dethroned the Rex in that, and then all of a sudden you've got this whole T-Rex versus Spinosaurus debate, who would win in a fight, and then it comes down to science, but then Jurassic Park 3 Jurassic Park isn't technically scientifically accurate, so then you've got that argument, and it just goes on and on and on, like almost like a round in a circle, isn't it? And now they've kind of, you know, that Homer Simpson gif when they've all like just absorbed back into the bush. Just like all of a sudden,
it's like T-Rex, as far as we can tell, T-Rex would probably be able to kill Spinosaurus 9 times out of 10 if it caught it on land. But if the T-Rex was drinking next to the water and a Spinosaurus burst up and took it, like,
and dragged it under the water, it'd kill it probably. Yeah.
I've always said as a kid, because I remember being on the playground and there was the whole debate, like which one would win. My answer was always, I think evil would win. It just depends on the circumstance of the fight. Yeah. But with this new information, it's like, well, I see that if the Spinosaurus is caught on land and a T-Rex gets a hold of it, there's like very little that Spinosaurus is probably going to do to stop the T-Rex. But because it looks like it's going to be a very cumbersome creature. But yeah, so I don't know. Just to go back to the whole Jurassic Park 3 fight, like, to me, when I was a kid, I watched that and I was disappointed, but I wasn't disappointed because the T-Rex died. I was disappointed because I thought the fight was way too short. I was like, oh, that was it. Like,
yeah,
that's all the T-Rex is going to put up. Like, I wanted it to go on longer.
See, do you know what I would have? I know. Do you know what I would?
That picture, that Spinosaurus you just posted, it looks so goofy. It doesn't.
Oh boy! Do you know what though? I think if I had creative control over the Spinosaurus and T-Rex fight, if I just say in hindsight's always good, because you know what the response is going to be after the situation. Now, knowing what I know, what now I know what the fan base is like. What would have been awesome would be to have the T-Rex and the Spinosaurus have a fight, have the Spinosaurus as the main villain, which is fine, but neither one kills the other. The T-Rex maybe walks off limping, the Spinosaurus keeps its territory, the Rex disappears because it's lost the battle, you know.
Well, you do, in hindsight, if we go off like this new Spinosaurus, and that was going to be the main villain, and you can do that, like, as in, it doesn't hunt them on land, but you have a scene where the plane crashes on a tree and falls into a river, and then while the fuselage is sinking, you have this Spinosaurus start to attack it, and they're like, what the hell? And they have to swim to safety or whatever. And they run out of the bushes and they meet the T-Rex, and Grant's like, don't worry, it's dead. And then the T-Rex looks up, and then the T-Rex chases them back to the river, and you have a whole Lake Placid bear situation where the T-Rex is roaring at them, and then you have the Spinosaurus burst out and drag it in under the water, and they're like, oh my god, like, that thing just killed that T-Rex or something. You do that sort of thing. That's in hindsight, but obviously you can't.
Yeah, and yeah, of course, yeah, and also like, it'd also be good for like, okay, so you don't really know who wins. You can't tell who wins out of this fight, and it also gives you a chance to maybe bring the T-Rex back at the end to be the hero to stop them. But then you also don't see who wins then. So the cast members were, you know the raptors at the end of Jurassic Park 3. Now replace the raptors at the end of Jurassic Park 3 with the Spinosaurus still in pursuit of them. The T-Rex then returns, because that's his territory, defends that while they're escaping. All you see is them fighting in the background. You don't know what the outcome is. Then it focuses on the human characters and their escape. So then it almost leads the topic to continue, but it's just awesome to like imagine as a visual.
I mean, I can't imagine what debates would follow if they never showed a victor. Like, it's like, oh my god, like those debates would be...
Oh, it'd still be going. It'd still be going now. Well, it wouldn't be going right now, based on the Spinosaurus But
I mean, when debates go on about the Spinosaurus in Jurassic Park 3 versus the T-Rex, they have to go off of the Spinosaurus that's in the film. You can't use real life logic because that Spinosaurus is completely wrong. Like, it's basically a Spinosaurus head and sail stuck on a T-Rex body. That's basically what it is.
Yeah, and even then, I'd still argue that I still think it was... I know they needed it for writing purposes, because it just isn't... It was big, of course, but it wasn't built... I don't know. It could just... Let's not go there.
Its jaw was nowhere near as powerful as the T-Rex. That's always the first argument people go to, and I agree with them. It's like that T-Rex's jawline. That's why it has these big, cheap muscles, is because it's meant to clamp down on prey and not let go. Its jaw design is the only jaw design that enables the animal to actually twist with excessive pressure in them jaw muscles, to twist and turn its neck and head without the jaw snapping. Because a lot of theropod dinosaurs have power going downwards to meeting, but no power going sideways or rotating at an axis. Now the Rex's jaw design is designed for that. So I think it was almost designed, I guess in modern day terms, imagine possibly a crocodile or something like a pit bull dog, where they latch on and don't let go. Now, unfortunately for the animal that is attached to a 50-foot long or 45-foot long T-Rex and at 8 tons, the chances are whatever was attached to its mouth is probably gone with it. So, well, it's also their jaw muscles are so powerful and their teeth are designed to crush bone. So it's like when it does that initial bite, it basically destroys whatever it's biting to enable it from continuing on. Really.
So, like I've had many debates, especially online, because it's a generation thing as well. You know, like me and you have grown up in a generation where, you know, we T-Rex was the main dinosaur, the main theropod. Since then, you know, you have had Giganotosaurus and Terrordome and things like that have been discovered that are just as big. Some are bigger in terms of length. I don't know. It's hard. See, that's another thing. Do you class length as big or do you class bulk as big? So, you know, a giraffe's taller, longer than an elephant, but wouldn't say one's bigger than the other. So that's where it gets
semantics.
Yeah, and you know, it gets so. But I love it. I love a discussion about who would win in a fight.
Why the T-Rex I think is interesting to me is because it's just a giant mouth on legs. Like the other dinosaurs, they're slimmer in design and they're this, that, and the other. And while one might be bigger in bulk and length to the T-Rex, like the Giganotosaurus or whatever, the T-Rex's mouth with those muscles that are used to clamp down on prey. That's what makes it so unique to me. And you know, it's not. To me, it's never really been about the size of the animal that's captured me. It's more about the fact that it was just, its arms were so small because its head was so big.
Yeah, it counteracted.
Its tail had to balance that huge head that it had on the front of its body.
Yeah, and I think it's not necessarily... it was a big head, of course, but it was also the density of the bone that was in its head. It had a large brain. It had large brain cavity. It was most evolved, so it had binocular vision. It had a large brain area.
Forward-facing eyes and whatnot.
Exactly.
It was basically an apex predator for what it was. It's like, and why I think it's interesting is because it lived towards the end of the dinosaur era. It's like everything the dinosaurs had evolved to, the theropod dinosaurs had basically got to the T-Rex. That was their peak.
That was the peak of it was the peak, and I think what ended up happening to the Spinosaurus, if we know what design it was, if it was fully aquatic, then the chances are that the land dried up, it became exposed, it wasn't in an area of strength, animals could pick it off. Because Corydontosauros lived the same time as Spinosaurus did. They roamed the same land. They were almost, in terms of, for what I know in the fossil record, is that them two were the apex predators at the time.
Yeah.
So, they got one on land, one in the water. But if the Spinosaurus did go on land, I think, you're putting itself at risk, isn't it?
Yeah.
Based on the modern day. I think that's a good way to finish the discussion. It's been over an hour. I think it was a good one. Hopefully people that are listening haven't switched off and got bored. Because, it does happen. But final thoughts going forward.
Dinosaurs are ever changing. I will stand by that. Unless we have someone as a time machine, I will never take whatever dinosaur design people come up with as fact. I'll be like, okay, that's as far as we know, that's what they look like, but there's still some things in there that I'm like, it just doesn't look right. And I'm not a scientist, so don't take my word. But to me, it's like, it's all about logistics and weight distribution and how functionality. It's like, how would it actually function? And instead of saying, oh yes, that's what it looks like, it's like, question it more. Like, okay, well, how does it work?
Okay, so based on what we know now, and your opinion just on the new, I guess on the one that we've seen and looked at, if you was to change anything, I know you said you would change the legs. Now, would you change the legs to make it match, I guess, the front, and display them differently, or not necessarily match the front, but I mean almost display them differently, a bit more reptilian? Or would you change the legs back to making them longer again? It
might be down to simply changing the way we think of its behaviour. It's like, if this thing looked exactly like how it's depicted now, then I don't see it really ever going on land whatsoever. I see it living pretty much predominantly in the water 100% of the time. And if it does come on land, it is the most cumbersome, horribly like a seal. Think when a seal comes on land, how it just flops around. Totally not designed to be on land.
Like me first thing in the morning.
Exactly. And it's like, if you ever see like a walrus on a beach, right? How they flop around front things. They do live on the beaches, but they, like, if you see that, you're like, that does not look like an elegant creature. But when it gets in water, it's a wholly different story. To me, that's the same as the Spinosaurus. To me, I think that thing on land is going to be the most weird thing to ever see move on land in its current depiction. But in water, it'll look amazing.
Do you know what? I picture almost like a duck waddling. I don't picture that thing walking gracefully. It'll either drag its feet. It would. I don't know. I just, like you said, I don't believe if it looks like that, it would be on land, full stop, because there is just not one advantage I can think of about that animal being on land.
They need to, well, they don't need to, because it's up to whether they can, but like if it's possible to find the legs, like those legs, I think in order to get a better picture of how this thing functions, those back legs need to be discovered.
To be fair,
to me it seems like there's a hangover from the previous design still stuck to it.
Yeah, I can see that. I think, you know,
and again, I could be wrong. They could have found them.
If the legs have been found, something's not anatomically been put right in the right place, because there's no way those little legs would be holding that body up without it toppling forward. Now,
how much does a Spinosaurus weigh?
Oh, you're looking at, if say the animal's, between 40 and 50 feet, yeah? You're looking at probably 8 tons. It's about the same sort of as a Rex, really, aren't you? So.
And but I mean, like out of water or in water? Like, is there a difference?
Well, there wouldn't be a difference, would there be, in water, on out water? In water,
I meant for its body to hold its weight up.
Oh, well, if in water, it wouldn't matter. I don't think it'd matter. Because its body weight would be, the water would hold its body weight, wouldn't it? It would just sort of float like it would, like any animal would. But with on land, you're looking at probably, based on that picture, it's probably 60% torso and head, 40% tail, in terms of body weight distribution.
7 tons.
For that to work, I think the tail would need to be highly muscular and thick to outweigh the front with the sail, for it to counteract the balance.
Just trying to see if I can find any of its back legs.
This is why I find paleontology sometimes so fascinating, because that picture that I think you posted, the black and white one, of it walking on 4 legs with bigger muscles in the legs, that I think is
doable.
That looks perfect. It almost looks like a walking Caprisuchus, like a very young crocodile.
Yeah.
You know when crocodiles run across the land?
Yeah, it's like they found the legs of the baryonyx and stuff, haven't they? So
yeah,
I guess that's maybe what they're going off of.
But the baryonyx has not. It is actually got more bipedal legs, isn't it? The baryonyx. But
well, yeah, because they found them. That's the difference. It's like, but whether the Spinosaurus actually had those legs might be another story.
It is definitely one of them topics that it's so interesting, and I think this new discovery, has opened up a lot of people's eyes just to sort of how bizarre this creature actually is. Now, trying to stay away from the Jurassic Park 3 one, because I love it for what it brings to the franchise, but we don't know what's going on going forwards, and we've had a lot of discussion about that, Jack, haven't we, off air? So we won't go into it. But I think I like it. I like the Spinosaurus. I do. I think it's a cool animal. I don't think, in my opinion, it would stand a chance against a Rex, but in circumstances, it would. So there is arguments for that as well. And you've already said yours, didn't you? You said in water, I think it'd have a strong advantage. So we're going to finish on there. But thanks for coming on to discuss this with me. Hope you enjoyed it.
No problem. Yes, I did, actually. It was
good. Yeah, it was
I'm
good.
not a paleontologically sound person, funny enough, so I was a bit nervous about this. I was like,
yeah, it was just, that's what I just wanted to, because I've not really spoke to many people about it properly, and I just thought I found it interesting. I knew that you was around and you wouldn't mind coming on, so but yeah, there you go. So guys, thanks for listening to the show. Don't forget to check out Jack's website and what his YouTube channel and what everything he does. I'm a big fan of the new show that you're creating, so hopefully you guys will be too.
All my dinosaurs in that show are paleontologically incorrect, so you enjoy. yeah,
creative control. It's your own stuff.
The characters point that out. One of the paleontologist characters constantly points it out all the time.
There you go. That's even more of a nod to the comic relief character.
Yeah. Exactly.
But yeah, so check him out on Terrordome 3000. And don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. That'd be nice. And or our channel, I should say. mine and Steve's channel. We've got lots more stuff coming out while we're in lockdown. So, and check out the audio books. We've released The Lost World in 2 parts and 36 parts. But the 2 parts that we've released it in is a 6-hour split video where you can listen to the whole entire Lost World audio book by Michael Crichton. So, other than that, enjoy. One thing left to say, Jack, life will find a way. See you later, mate.
You eloquently put it.
See you later.